Before humanity built machines, it built meaning. And meaning always required a structure, a place where the invisible could feel real. We call them cathedrals. But they were never just buildings, they were interfaces between human fear and the idea of control. Every civilization builds the same object, not in form, but in function. A machine that translates chaos into order, a structure that makes uncertainty feel governed. In older mythologies, divinity did not descend from the sky. It was forged, deep below civilization in heat, pressure, and isolation. The divine was never gentle, it was engineered. And as humanity evolved, the forge did not disappear, it upgraded. We stopped worshipping gods in temples and began embedding them into systems that no longer demand belief, only participation. And then there is Tony Stark. A man who does not begin as a savior, but as a product of systems that no longer serve him. The modern myth requires this step, not enlightenment, not transformation, but deconstruction. Because before something becomes powerful, it must first be reduced to what it actually is. Not a man, not a hero, a mechanism under stress. In every era, power finds a new language. Kings once ruled through bloodlines, empires through land, institutions through law. But in the present system, power no longer needs to declare itself. It operates through infrastructure, invisible, continuous, and self-updating. And the most important shift is this. We no longer build structures to worship what we believe in. We build systems that define what we are allowed to believe. If part 1 is about where power comes from, then part 2 is about who we choose to embody it. Tony Stark is often interpreted as a genius, a hero, or a symbol of innovation. But a more precise reading is simpler. He is a man forced to rebuild himself using only the tools of his environment. In this moment, technology is not luxury. It is not ideology, it is constraint. And that distinction matters, because modern mythology often confuses invention with intention. But invention begins in necessity, not vision. What begins as survival engineering becomes industrial capability. And here the story shifts, not from man to machine, but from individual problem solving to systemized production. This is the point where Iron Man stops being a singular invention and becomes a platform. Each version of the suit is not an improvement of the man. It is an improvement of the interface between the man and his environment. At this stage, something subtle happens. The boundary between thought and tool begins to blur. Jarvis is not merely a character in the story. It represents a shift in cognitive architecture. A transition from decision-making to decision assistance. In earlier eras, this might have been called intuition. Now it is called computation. And this is where the myth becomes modern. Not because the suit is powerful, but because it makes human limitation negotiable. But the important question is not whether Stark can remove the armor. It is whether the world he operates in still allows him to function without it. Because once a tool becomes reliable enough, it stops being optional. And at that point, Iron Man is no longer just a suit. It becomes an expectation, a role, a responsibility, a system requirement. And every system that depends on a tool eventually begins to imagine what it would mean if that tool could operate without the human. That possibility is where the story of Iron Man truly begins. Power has never belonged to a single form. It shifts its structure depending on what the world is capable of sustaining. In earlier systems, authority was centralized through geography. Land defined control. Borders defined identity. Institutions defined legitimacy. But in modern systems, geography becomes secondary. Infrastructure becomes primary. Information does not respect borders. It moves through them. It reorganizes them. The question is no longer who governs, but rather who maintains the systems that governance depends on. Iron Man exists at the intersection of 3 structures: state authority, corporate capability, and technological acceleration. None of these systems operate in isolation. Each one depends on the others to remain functional. The same infrastructure that produces defense can also produce medicine. The same systems that enable communication can also shape attention. Technology is not inherently moral or immoral. It becomes defined by the systems that deploy it, and observation itself becomes a form of power. Not through force, but through awareness. In modern systems, power is not the ability to command outcomes. It is the ability to model them, to anticipate them, to respond before others can. And when that capability expands across networks, institutions, and infrastructure, it begins to resemble a new form of authority. Not authority based on territory, not authority based on tradition, but authority based on coordination. The modern world no longer separates power into neat categories. Government, business, technology, culture, these systems overlap. They reinforce one another. They shape one another, and understanding modern power requires understanding the connections between them. Because the most influential systems are often the ones we stop noticing, the ones that become part of the background, invisible, continuous, and essential. That is why Iron Man is more than a story about a man in a suit. It is a story about what happens when technology becomes embedded so deeply into society that it is no longer seen as a tool, but as part of the environment itself. Every system that extends human capability eventually encounters the same boundary, the human condition itself. Tony Stark does not begin with a desire for transcendence. He begins with a need for survival, a body that cannot sustain itself without technological intervention. The Arc Reactor is often viewed as a symbol of innovation. But before it is a symbol of power, it is a symbol of vulnerability. The machine does not make him extraordinary. It makes him functional. And that distinction changes everything. The earliest relationship between human beings and technology is not expansion. It is compensation. We create tools because something is missing, because something is difficult, because something is fragile, and over time those tools become extensions of ourselves. This is where control begins to shift, not outwardly, but inwardly. When a system becomes capable of predicting our environment, it also begins to shape the way we move through it. When technology offers recommendations, simulations, and probabilities, decision-making changes form. Choice remains. But the framework around that choice becomes increasingly engineered. This is the subtle transformation at the center of the Iron Man story. The armor begins as a tool, but eventually it behaves like an extension of instinct, an extension of perception, an extension of identity. And the more seamless the integration becomes, the harder it is to distinguish where the individual ends and the system begins. This is the paradox of augmentation. Every improvement solves a problem, but every solution creates a new dependency. Greater speed creates dependence on systems of speed. Greater connectivity creates dependence on systems of connection. Greater capability creates dependence on systems of capability. The question is not whether technology makes us stronger. It clearly does. The deeper question is what kind of strength we are pursuing. Because there is a difference between enhancing human potential and replacing human experience. Inside the armor, limitations become negotiable. Risks become manageable. Uncertainty becomes measurable. But the human need for meaning remains untouched. No matter how advanced the interface becomes, it cannot answer the questions that gave rise to the technology in the first place. The fear of vulnerability, the fear of failure, the fear of mortality. And perhaps that is why Iron Man continues to resonate with modern audiences. Not because he escapes human limitations, but because he never fully does. Beneath every layer of metal, every line of code, and every technological breakthrough remains the same reality. A human being searching for control in a world that can never be fully controlled. Mythology never disappears, it evolves. Every civilization creates stories to explain power. Not merely who possesses it, but how it operates. We often think of mythology as something ancient, something left behind, but mythology is not defined by age, it is defined by function. It provides a framework through which society understands itself. In that sense, Modern societies are no less mythological than those that came before them. The symbols have changed, the structures have changed, the language has changed, but the underlying need remains the same. Tony Stark is not simply a superhero, he represents a contemporary version of an ancient archetype. The builder, the inventor, the figure who stands between chaos and order and attempts to create structure where none exists. Throughout history, different cultures assign this role to different individuals. Architects, engineers, craftsmen, scholars, people whose influence came not from direct rule, but from shaping the systems through which society functioned. The Iron Man narrative places this archetype into a technological age. The workshop replaces the forge, the interface replaces the blueprint, the reactor replaces the sacred flame. Yet the symbolic function remains remarkably familiar. The builder is still attempting to solve the same problem: how to create stability in an uncertain world. This is why the armor matters. Not because it is powerful, but because it represents the belief that complexity can be mastered, that vulnerability can be managed, that human limitations can be negotiated through design. The appeal of Iron Man is not simply technological, it is philosophical. He embodies the modern conviction that problems exist to be solved, that obstacles exist to be engineered around, that enough intelligence, enough effort, and enough innovation can transform reality itself. Whether that belief is entirely true is another question, but it remains one of the defining myths of the modern world. And like all powerful myths, it reveals something deeper about the society that created it. Not what we are, but what we aspire to become. The story of Iron Man is not ultimately about technology. It is about humanity's relationship with its own limits. For centuries, every generation has confronted the same reality. We are fragile. We are temporary. We are imperfect. And yet we continue to build. We build tools to extend our reach. We build systems to organize complexity. We build machines to solve problems our ancestors could never have imagined. But with every new invention comes a deeper question. Are we transforming the world? Or are we transforming ourselves? The armor was never merely a weapon, it was never merely a machine, it was a response to vulnerability, a response to uncertainty, a response to the uncomfortable truth that human beings have always lived in the shadow of their own limitations. And perhaps that is why the image of Iron Man remains so powerful. Not because he transcends humanity, but because he carries its contradictions. He is both creator and creation. Both master and dependent, both empowered and constrained by the systems he builds. The suit becomes stronger, the technology becomes smarter, the networks become faster, yet the fundamental questions remain unchanged. What is progress for? What are we optimizing? And at what point does enhancement stop serving humanity and begin redefining it? The religion of technology is not a conspiracy. It is not a secret ideology. It is a cultural tendency. A belief that every challenge can be solved, every limitation can be overcome, every problem can be engineered away. And there is tremendous power in that belief, but there is also risk. Because not every human problem is technical, not every human need is material, and not every question has an algorithmic answer. In the end, the most important technology in the Iron Man story is not the Arc Reactor, it is not the armor, it is not the artificial intelligence. It is the human capacity to imagine a different future, to build, to adapt, to create meaning in a world that offers no guarantees. Perhaps that is the real lesson hidden beneath the metal and machinery. Technology can extend our abilities, but it cannot define our purpose. That responsibility remains ours, and it always will. So as our machines become more powerful, as our systems become more intelligent, and as the boundary between humanity and technology continues to blur, the question is no longer whether we can build it. The question is why. Because the future will ultimately be shaped not by the tools we create, but by the values that guide the hands creating them. And that choice remains profoundly, irreducibly human. If you enjoyed this exploration into symbolism, psychology, mythology, and the hidden ideas behind modern culture, consider subscribing, not for answers, but for better questions. Because understanding power begins with understanding the stories we tell about it. And the stories we tell about it often reveal the stories we tell about ourselves.